Welcome to She Rebel Radio, the podcast for high-performing women leaders who want to unlearn conventional rules, leave prestigious careers, and launch businesses of significance. Each week, She Rebel Radio brings you insights and advice from women entrepreneurs who transformed their prestige prisons into daring entrepreneurial success stories. Now, here is your host, Lulu Nins.
Welcome to episode 57 of She Rebel Radio, How to Found and Flourish in Business with Lara Sheldrake. Lara is the founder of Found and Flourish, which is an online membership, media and events platform empowering the next generation of female entrepreneurs to both found and flourish within their businesses. Lara is a speaker, community builder and entrepreneur, combining a background in sales and strategy with her passion for empowering women. She's built an incredible online community of women at Found and Flourish, which all started with her Hugs and Brunch events. Lara, it's amazing to have you here. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing really well, thank you. And it's an honour to be on your wonderful podcast.
Yes, I think many people know I'm very intuitively led with She Rebel Radio. And you just kept on popping into my mind that September, we need to have you on.
Oh, I love it. September is a theme for female founders across the board, I think. Quite a few publications are doing stuff in September. I think it's just that season, isn't it? It's getting back to work, back to school, and everyone's just ready to be inspired. So it's an honour to be here.
Yes, and definitely after the year we've all had, it's a time for women to be inspired and take some action,
Tell
right?
me about it. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'd love to get stuck in. I'm fascinated by your background in sales and strategy, where you supported from early stage startups to household brand names. How did that create a foundation for you to start Found and Flourish?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Not one that I've ever been asked before. I tend to not go that far back into my career because it's funny. I think from working in corporates to then having my son and building Found and Flourish, it literally seems like a lifetime ago. But just to give you a bit of a background, I left uni and I'd consider that I always had a bit of an entrepreneurial flair. I've set up a number of businesses. Some worked, some didn't. I've definitely I'm a seasoned failure in many things when it comes to entrepreneurship, but I think that's all part of the learning process. So for me, having not had the easiest career in running my own businesses, I had a couple of startup ideas, and I think I was just too young. I didn't have the life experience or the business experience. Mm-hmm. So I worked my way sort of up the media and marketing sort of career ladder within social media. I worked at a couple of agencies, and I actually I'm in London. I'm in Brighton right now, where you're interviewing me. But between then and the last 15 years, I actually used to live in Brighton before moving to London. And it was moving to London that I found myself kind of at a bit of a crossroads. And I went to a recruitment agency saying that I was looking for a role within project management and social media, within a media agency, and somehow managed to walk out of the recruitment agency with a job in recruitment. So I spent a number of years working in sales, recruitment and events, working side by side with startups, really entrepreneurial, exciting startups who were going through rounds of funding, through to household brands, as I mentioned, like Red Bull, and big agencies like VaynerMedia. And the experience I had throughout that sort of 5-year period was, I think I really underestimate how much that has a bearing on the career I've built and what I'm doing now with Found and Flourish. So I wanted to give you a bit of a background in that, because there's a lot of my previous career that I just don't really talk about. And actually, on reflection, especially over the last year or so, looking at what I've built and how I've built the business that I'm working on now, which is Found and Flourish, which is predominantly an online membership, community, media and events platform.
Yeah.
But looking back, the recruitment piece, the employer branding piece, where I was working with founders of businesses who wanted to sort of understand how they could articulate and communicate their brand messaging, values, mission, vision to the people that they wanted to hire, through to companies who were wanting to look more appealing to investors. All this kind of stuff has built my experience up to a point now where I have a really good understanding of what it takes to grow a business, what it takes, what you need as a business owner and founder to really kind of see a business through, having worked side by side with some, incredibly inspirational people. So when you sent me that question, I thought that's so interesting, because it actually gave me an opportunity to reflect on what I've learned and actually how applicable that experience has been to what I'm doing now.
There is a real opportunity for listeners there, because a real hint in what you said, that it's really important. And I found with my journey and the clients that I work with, to take that pause and look back at where you've come from and what you have done, because even
So
though
true.
there can be a point that you reject that, right? That history that you have. Same for me as a criminal defense lawyer,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
what that underpins is 20 years worth of studying human behavior. You said you recognised an entrepreneurial flair from a young age. How did that show itself when you were younger?
I think coming up with ways in which I could make money from buying things and buying sweets and selling them at school, to coming up with ideas in which we can create we created like this artwork at school, but I proposed that everyone invested, like paid £2 each to pay for the printing, and that, it would create this beautiful like piece of art that we could all enjoy, like little things that I did throughout my younger years. And that's not something that I really recognized at the time. But when I left uni, I was like, right, I'm going to set up my own business. It's not something you're encouraged to do at uni. But when I see either a problem, or I see a skill set that I have that I know can resolve a problem or offer a solution to a group of people or a person or a business or whatever, to me that was like a calling. So I was like, right, okay, well, I can see these people's social media is rubbish. I'd look at these like cafes and restaurants and some of my favorite places that I go to, and I absolutely loved what they did, but I knew that social media could be better. And I actually had a few clients in my first consultancy, but it just wasn't enough, and I didn't have the business experience or acumen. But it was knowing that
pride, which is part of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I've always been someone who, has taught myself how to build websites. I have about 20 domain names that I've bought because one day it might end up being a business.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really nice. We're so fortunate to live in a world where we have all of this at our fingertips. And, things like app ideas that I've had, where I've gone to sort of pitching phase and then found out that, that app isn't going to make enough money, so it's not worth us investing in, and it's just a bit of trial and error. But I think I've always had a bit of a flair for it, and it's really been about honing in on what it is that I'm good at and nurturing those skills, and believing that, eventually it will pay off. Because for a long time, for me, I think it's not, the stars haven't quite aligned. So there's been lots of experiences where I've learned so much along the way, but for some reason it wasn't quite right, and so I did something else. And I definitely look back at my career up until very recently, actually, and gone, God, I really was like a jack of all trades. I did so much. And
how did you hone in on your skills and what you're good at, or your zone of genius, if that's what you call it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think when you find yourself being able to do something with ease, and you can see the impact it's having on other people's lives, that's when you realize that's your zone of genius. So for me, over the years, it's been communication, social media, and events, because that's something that I've always, up until recently, dabbled in and then specialized in. And most recently with Found and Flourish, I'd say my zone of genius is community. It's something that I've always absolutely loved, facilitating. I'm one of 4 girls. My dad remarried, and I've got 2 brothers as well. So I'm one of 6 children, a big family. I love being around people and bringing people together. I was always the one at school and uni to set up reunions and parties for people. And I just love bringing people together. And that definitely then was a passion that I'd like to think now I've been able to turn into a business. And I guess it's the experience that I had from feeling very lost and alone in the corporate world towards the end, where I didn't recognize myself, through to finding what it was that was really important to me, and then honing in on that, to then understanding the struggles of entrepreneurship and running a business against all the odds, and then having a baby and feeling incredibly lonely. It's all that experience I've had.
Because I was going to say, what problem did you, because you said you loved to solve problems, what problem did you see female entrepreneurs and that led you to creating Found and Flourish? And as you said, lonely came up a number of times in terms of women. Do women feel like they're on their own and need a different kind of support?
Do you know what? I think there are some people that do, and then there are some people that don't. And the ones that don't, I can guarantee have that support system around them, whether it's community, family, partners who understand what they're going through. I think it was an unconscious decision that I needed to be a part of a community. And I was like, right, I'm coming off mat leave. I want to go back into business. I don't want to go and work for anyone else. I could reopen my consultancy. But a part of me was thinking, I want to find a community that speaks to me and where I can feel like I've got a real sense of belonging. And I know whatever part of the journey I'm on, I feel resourced and supported and empowered. And I went on a little search online. At the time, I couldn't find anything that resonated. Now we are blessed with so many different networks and communities. No matter who you are, I'd like to think that there is a community out there for you, especially for women in business, where you will be able to relate to them, you'll find like-minded people, and you'll feel resourced for whatever part of the journey that you are on at the time. But back then I couldn't find anything, and that's when the idea for Found and Flourish came about. And I just thought, okay, so community is really important. Resources, so having that, like the support to know, for example, I many a night would stay up until like 2-3 in the morning, early hours in the morning, trying to figure out how to code or put a website together, or whatever it was. And I can guarantee if I was a part of the community back then, where I could literally just go, oh hey, you code, how do I do this? Or just having that support system would have saved so much time, and also given me the confidence to see that business through, because that was one of the many businesses that I ended up just walking away from.
Support and the expertise, because that's the thing.
Exactly.
When you're a solopreneur starting up on your own, you need to do all the stuff, or you think you haven't.
Well, that's it. So the thing is, like, you have to wear a lot of hats, but one of our values is you are not an island. You're not expected to have all the skills, to know all the people, to have all the experience. We are wired to connect, and we're wired to connect with other people and to be a part of a community. It's like innate within us. And so when we don't have that, we feel isolated, lonely. We have low confidence, imposter syndrome, is a big problem, especially amongst the female entrepreneurial community. That's something that a lot of people experience. But when you have the support and you have essentially cheerleaders around you, encouraging you along that journey, the likelihood of you giving up is a lot lower. And for example, when it comes to entrepreneurship, according to the OECD, women setting up a business attract less funding than men, and also suffer from the general lack of support for founders. And this is so important. If women don't feel supported, they are most likely then, they'll get to a point where they might be forced to walk away from it, or they have they start a young family, and other sort of responsibilities start to impact their decision on whether it's even worth carrying on. And I think when you're connected with people who have either walked that path before, been there, and can share their own experiences or advice, you can't put a price on that.
No, you can't. So what are your top tips for women who are founding, heart-based businesses? I think community is definitely one of them. Find your community. What other tips do you have for those who are at the founding stages?
Yeah. So the first thing I would suggest is really nailing your mission statement. So knowing exactly what it is you're doing, understanding your values, so who you are, your vision, how you see the world, and how you want to see the world based on the positive impact your business is going to be providing it. And once you've got all that in place, it's then about putting your message out there in a way that speaks to the people that you want to attract. And one of my favorite quotes, it's so simple, but a quote by David Hyatt, who's a marketing expert and the author of Do Open. So he's written a book all around email marketing. And he just says, he talks about like attracting like. So his quote is like attracts like. And it's really simple. If you are authentic and true to yourself and your mission, and you articulate it in a way where people can relate, you will naturally attract people like you. I often get asked, how did I build a community of lovely, kind people? And I honestly, obviously there's a lot of hard work that goes into it, from building a newsletter list, putting on events, branding, social media, marketing, and everything in between. But the way you conduct yourself, the things that you talk about, the values that you share, when you are clear on your mission, your vision, and your values and your purpose, and you articulate those often, that's what will attract the kind of people that you're looking to attract into your business. So I'd say that's like the golden formula in my view. And to not forget the problems that you're solving. So how are you making lives easier, richer, better in some way? And practical advice would be to understand the platforms that your audience will be on. So it doesn't need to be on everything, but for me, I think our newsletter has been really helpful in building an initial community. Our social media.
Right, yeah, it's been
thank you. Yeah, it's been a bit of trial and error in terms of the sort of consistency, because since launching our online membership, our members get a weekly update, and sending a weekly update to our members and then a weekly update to everyone else was a little bit too much. So I've moved it to a monthly newsletter, which I think works really well, because it's just a nice way of everyone outside of the membership, the wider community, to understand what's going on in the female founder community, tips, tools, resources that people can learn about, and ways in which they can also get involved with the business and the community. But I think partnerships also are really valuable to any business, and that's a way in which I feel the brand has been able to grow quite significantly. So by partnering with other female founders, people who want to either share their stories, their expertise, put on an event, and no matter what your business is, whether it's a service or a product base, there will always be opportunities to collaborate and partner with other people. Which
is that something that's a good idea to do at the beginning, do you think, or is that something more with flourishing and growing the business?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, we Found and Flourish were collaborating with people from the very beginning, because we had blog contributors and people who wanted to share their entrepreneurial sort of journey and story with our readers. So it depends what the business model is. I think the most important thing is to definitely get your messaging right, and to find yourself in a place where your story and your message is consistent, and you're starting to attract the people that you want to attract. But I'd say that it's difficult, because there are so many different answers depending on what kind of business it is. But I think when it feels right, when you're ready to start bringing other people into, whether it's featuring people on your platform, to inviting them to share their story, or asking them to share yours, when you feel you're ready. And I think I'd always say go with your gut.
Yeah, I think what you said there in terms of, getting clear about your values, that is super important, because as well, if you're going to
absolutely,
etc. And I think sometimes, when we're certainly founding a business, I know with my first business, you can do it as a need of security, that I need a business partner, or I'm going to, do this for this person. And actually, like, your values or your vision, your mission are totally different, and you create a whole headache for yourself. So those foundational pieces that you said there are so important to then build on, aren't they? No matter where you are, if you're clear about that,
absolutely,
everything
yes,
will become easier.
Absolutely, yeah, I totally agree. Yeah,
and I've always loved, the group of women that I pull together at my retreats. Like, they make lifelong friends, and they're all attracted by what I'm putting out there, and I'm always blown away by the incredible intimacy that's created at the retreats following that, and how similar everybody is.
So special. Yeah, exactly. Well, you bring a wonderful group of women together, and I can't wait until I can come on one of your retreats.
Yes, waiting for announcements for 2021.
Tell me about it.
There's some
Great.
good stuff coming up. How did you get clear about what type of community that you really wanted to create?
I was almost setting up the business to support women like my younger self. Looking back, I really did waste a lot of time trying to teach myself things that I think I could have made my life a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I knew it was important to get the messaging right and make sure that I was creating a welcoming environment for women who, whether they were just starting out with an idea through to having a business and just needing that additional support because they were getting to a point where their business was growing and it can be incredibly overwhelming and people can feel under-resourced during that phase. And so it was a case of really understanding the different challenges that those different types of women would be facing. Mm-hmm. And when it came to deciding what the community, that's a really interesting question because I hadn't planned out the type of people necessarily that I wanted to be a part. I was just very authentic and true to what I felt I needed throughout those different phases. And as I started to share, resources and stories that sort of spoke to those different types of people, it was clear that there was definitely a specific group of people that who were attracted to the community.
And what kind of specific group would you say that is? Women with a degree of kindness?
Absolutely a degree of kindness. I haven't met one woman who is not just an absolute gem. Everyone is so supportive. Do you know what I think it is? I think as well, it's not necessarily like I've decided this is the type of community I want to build, but by talking about things like vulnerability, authenticity, being really true to, your values and your mission, and just being really open about the fact that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to fail. It's okay to feel lonely. You find that you attract, and it's going back to this saying, like attracts like, you find yourself attracting like-minded women who those types of messages speak to. So I think it's a really organic process when you are like completely true to who you are. And that's probably one of the biggest takeaways I've found, because as I said to you before, I felt a lot of resistance working in the corporate world, especially towards the end of my career within the media and marketing industry. And nothing made sense. It felt like really hard work. I was tired all the time. And when you're in a situation where things just flow, it's right. And if things don't flow, it's because you are not being true to yourself somewhere down the line.
Yeah.
And I think as long as you can tune in to what it is you really need to be doing and want to do, whether it's from a perspective of passion, desire, a need to have some form of impact that maybe you don't feel you're currently having, that's what you should be listening to and really honing in on that. And your question about how I honed in on it was really interesting. And I do think sometimes it is a case of trial and error, but it's about it's writing things down. It's having a brainstorm. It's asking yourself, what is it that makes me happy? Because that's the most important thing. You need to be happy. You need to enjoy what you're doing. And then you can almost work backwards and go, okay, so what problem is this solving? How can I make money from doing this? And also,
and was it for you with like the hugs and brunch make you happy? Because that was like a real
oh my gosh,
the business. Like, I need a hug and I want brunch with the girls.
100%. It was me. Yeah, like the first one, 8 people turned up. The second one, we were like selling out. And ever since then, we sell 30 tickets in the space of 24 hours. And I'd love to get to a point where I could put on a bigger event, because we host panel events, as you know. And I think next on the cards, we'll be creating some kind of big conference, but even the word I don't like, some kind of big meetup with lots of sort of pop-up workshops and brunch and hugs. But yeah, that was brilliant. And that's when I'm in my element, really, like, just being around other women. And it's not just hugs and brunch. We talk about challenges we might be facing, we problem solve together, and it's just it's so lovely, like just showing each other solidarity and support. And I think
just the name itself allows, immediately before a female entrepreneur has got there, a woman in her business, you know, there's a degree of vulnerability there that you
Definitely.
can say, you know, I need a hug today, like things are a bit crappy. And let's all face it, there are crappy days in business, right? It's not all
Absolutely.
not all an easy struggle. It's not an easy path. But what's been your biggest struggle with Found and Flourish, getting it to where it is now? Because, you know, I've heard that we heard you started things before and it hasn't worked out, and that's given you so many lessons. So what was your biggest struggle with getting?
Yeah, it's a good question. So my biggest struggle was finding a way of monetizing it. It's all very well having a passion and a desire and drive to do something and have impact, but the reason why quite a few of my businesses before, or business ideas, didn't work was because they weren't profit generating ideas. And you know, that, you know, you could argue then it's perhaps not that entrepreneurial to be coming up with ideas that are, you know, solving problems but not necessarily generating revenue. It depends who you speak to, but that's something that's always been really important to me, having a positive impact, and it was really impact and purpose before profit. And so that meant that I've had many months wondering how I'm going to make it work, and on multiple occasions really with my head in my hands going, I can't, something has to change pretty quickly, otherwise I just can't keep doing this. Savings have run out. You know, events were making a bit of money but not a huge amount, and at the time we didn't have a subscription model. And I think one of the biggest challenges, you know, when I was thinking about this question is my mindset more than anything, because it was basically reframing the idea of charging for something that I'd been providing essentially for free for over 12 months. And it took me a good couple of months to sort of say, okay, this is okay to start to charge for the things that you're providing, because the value is insane. And I actually got to a point where community members were saying, when are you going to start charging us for this? Like, when you setting up this membership, because we're ready to pay. And you know, that's that. I was at a point then where I thought, okay, this has to change, and I need to just sort myself out. And also, I think when you've had a baby, I was 2 years, not even 2 years into motherhood, your confidence is not massively, like, imposter syndrome has never been so powerful as it has been in the last couple of years. And it's a lot to overcome when you're looking after a child, running a business, convincing yourself and everyone around you that it will work one day. Just, you know, believe in me and the business. And there's only so long that you can say that before things need to change. So it was actually just after lockdown, and I had started to put together the membership. And obviously there's a huge amount of value added into the membership that people don't get as a wider community member, and that's things like a directory. We've got a group section where people can see working mums with freelancers, with entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs, through to resources and academy, online learning materials, perks. So there was a huge amount in there that I had to offer, and I just hadn't got it out there. And lockdown happened, and I thought, right, that's it. I'm just getting it out there. People are asking for it. Women need it. And now is the time just to put my ego to one side and just see what happens. And within, I don't know, I think 2 hours, we sold out of our founding membership places. And since then, it's just gone from strength to strength. So I think, you know, one of the biggest challenges for me was getting to a point where I could really see the value in what I was creating and providing, and just getting over myself. And I think that was such a big lesson looking back, because I often look at how long things have taken me to do, and I think, do you know what, in hindsight, that definitely could have taken me half the amount of time if I just gotten over myself.
Yeah, and I was going to say, do you find
told
that
my inner critic to shut up?
Yeah. So if you're telling your inner critic to shut up and getting out there and serving how you know that you can, and making that decision around that, have you found that you're serving at a higher level now that you've got out your own way?
100%, because I'm not worried about what people will think, or whether they think that's, you know, not the right thing to do. Or I'm just thinking I can tune into my gut now, and my heart and my head, and just go, okay, so what's right in the situation? What does this person need? Or what does the business need? What do I need to do to move it forwards, without the questioning of, but what if that, or what? And I think that still comes into play every now and again. And it's a constant work in progress, isn't it? But I think actually having the awareness is key, because then you can do something about it.
The ego can't exist when we're aware of it.
Absolutely.
So what is next for you and Found and Flourish? What's coming up?
So I'm hankering for a Hugs and Brunch. I cannot wait until we can finally have a big group of women meeting up and brunching and hugging. So events on the cards at the moment. All of our events are online, but I would absolutely love to do a retreat. Has been on the cards for over a year, but thanks to lockdown, it didn't happen this year. But a business retreat, looking to grow the membership. I'd love to get 500 members through the doors by the end of the year. We're focusing on a range of courses for women who are at the founding stage, which is anything up to 18 months, and then the flourishing stage, which is anything from 18 months plus. And I would absolutely love to create an app. So that's my long-term vision for the business.
Amazing. Thank you, Lara, so much for sharing with us. Is there anything else you want to share before you go?
No, that's it. Just if any of this resonated, please get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. My private Instagram is Lara_Sheldrake, and my business one is Found Flourish. I know, Lulu, you've got all the details, so I'm sure you'll share. But yeah, it would just be great to hear from anyone. And thank you so much, Lulu, for the opportunity.
Oh, my pleasure. Yes, please reach out to Lara and we will post all the links in the show notes.
Brilliant.
Thanks for listening to She Rebel Radio, the podcast for high-performing women leaders who want to unlearn conventional rules, leave prestigious careers, and launch businesses of significance. She Rebel Radio is executive produced and hosted by women's advocate and coach Lulu Mins. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode. You can find Lulu Mins on Facebook and LinkedIn at Lulu Mins, and on Instagram at LuluMins_biz. Until next week, keep rebelling against the rules and designing success your way.